funny that I just got done playing a game from the Yandere Game Jam from this year. And my first foray into the Otome Jam 2023 is Karamu by Chattercap. A game that could potentially fit into both. The it.io page describes it as a horror romance. This is also warns us that this game is not meant to depict healthy relationship dynamics, so be aware. There is elements of dubious consent and selective deafness to rejection by our love interest ? Raku. This is a game about Nelli Owens, who broke up with her long-term boyfriend 2 weeks ago. And he is not necessarily taking it the best. She's been avoiding him, and now circumstances be what they are. They are stuck together in the rain, in the woods, with a broken bike. Nothing but each other's company, and the heavy weight of everything on her shoulders. Yes. Oh, hello. Hello, Chattercap. This game contains horror elements and mature content. Gore and violence is also not meant to portray healthy relationship dynamics. Do you still wish to play? Yes. Be warned. Well, sure. All right. Auto. This is a really neat interface, but just let's be in the settings. Skip. Screenshot. Okay. Oh yeah, handy. Log. Menu. Ooh. Wait. Save. Load. Settings. Help. Okay. This is smooth. All right. Hope you enjoy the game. All right, let's begin. Nelly's throat stung as she gulped the cold dawn air. Her arms were shaking, knees weak, and the muscles ached so much that she struggled to grasp the handles. The haggard squeaks from the wheels of her bike tore through the silence that permeated the dark forest. She choked for breath around the small flashlight clenched between her teeth. The light was modest, only illuminating a small patch of the road directly in front of her bike. She needed to hurry. The sun was already starting to rise. It was okay. There were only 3 left. Nelly drove her heel down, pedaling with renewed vigor. She raised herself from the seat, leaning over the handles of the bike as she frantically turned the pedals, going faster and faster and faster until... snap. Oof! Terror ripped through Nelly as she was flung over the handles of her bike. She instinctively covered her face with her arm before she hit the ground. Her shoulder smacked against the concrete and a jolt of pain tore through the right side of her body. For a moment she lay on the ground, trying to steady her shaky breaths as the throbbing pain subsided into a dull ache. As soon as her head stopped spinning, she forced herself up on her elbows. She rotated her shoulder. It still hurt, but she could move it without any issues. Her knees and arms stung, too. First she was going to check them for injuries, but then she stopped herself. She got up on her knees and looked around, squinting in an attempt to pierce the murkiness of the early dawn light. Heart pounding, she patted the ground all around her. She found it. She breathed a sigh of relief. The yellow bag had fallen off to the side. She pulled it closer and examined it carefully. The zipper was shut tight. Everything was still inside. She slung the bag back over her shoulder and retrieved the fallen flashlight before returning her attention to her bike. It had collapsed on its side, wheels still spinning. The chain had come undone, draped over the ground like a dead snake. She picked up the chain. It was strangely slack.
Nelli.
Oh. She looked up. Cold tingles ran down her neck and through her spine, sending a chill running all the way to her fingers and toes. Hello. Raku was standing over her. Raku Kumode. Her ex-boyfriend. The tall young man peered down at her with curious, icy eyes from under the fringe of his badly dyed hair. What was he doing here? How could he be here? Right now, at this exact moment. Right when she would have done anything to avoid seeing him.
What are you doing here?
Spider on your coat? Feels intentional. Oh. Going for bike
I
ride.
went for an early morning bike ride.
Really?
Still a little too dark to clearly see his face, but Nelli could hear the skepticism in his voice. It made sense. During the year they had dated, Nelli never used her bike for anything other than her daily 20-minute commute or the occasional shopping trip. Voluntary exercise was torture for her.
I'm trying to be healthier.
Oh, that's good. Me too.
Yes, of course.
I was out for a walk myself. Drank too many energy drinks to power through the night, so I'm trying to burn off some of the caffeine.
These things happen, you know. His voice trailed off.
Anyway, are you alright? Fell off your bike?
He extended a hand. Nelli didn't take it. She stood up and slung the bag around her shoulder again, ignoring the mud and twigs stuck to her raincoat. Raku smiled awkwardly and retracted the hand before kneeling by her bike.
Your chain. It's broken.
What?
Raku picked up the broken ends of the chain and waved them around.
Don't think you'll be able to ride it for a while, unfortunately. You're heading home, right? Me too. I'll walk with you.
Nelly's voice caught in her throat. She tried to think of some excuse, anything that she could blurt out to make him go away, but she couldn't think of anything. Raku's face softened with a melancholic expression.
We don't have to talk. I just don't want to leave you alone out here. Not after what happened to Sana.
What happened to Sana? Nelly bit her lip. Sana, her roommate, and her best friend since middle school, had vanished 3 months ago. A week later, her body was found at the bottom of a cliff in this very forest, mangled beyond recognition. Oh, God. A tragic hiking accident. Fine.
I'm fine. I don't need you to escort me.
Raku frowned.
I'm sorry, but I can't abandon you here knowing your bike's broken. I don't care if you hate me. Just let me walk with you.
Raku extended a hand.
Want me to carry the bag for you?
That's the last thing I want.
No.
Nelly jerked away. Hey, we don't owe you anything. She held the bag close. He didn't respond. Instead, he placed both hands on the bike handles and started to walk it down the road. To Nelly's relief, Raku stayed true to his word. Normally he was quite talkative, rambling to her about whatever nerdy hobby captivated him that week. Now he didn't say a word. In fact, he was barely looking at her. He just continued walking, only casting an occasional glance at Nelly to make sure he was walking at her pace. When she was certain that he wasn't looking, Nelly peeked at her ex-boyfriend out of the corner of her eye. The circles under his eyes were as dark as ever, permanently tattooed reminders of his horrific sleeping habits. They stood out darkly against the anemic pallor of his skin. He was usually on the paler side, but he looked even more sickly than normal. Maybe he hadn't been getting enough sleep. Other students at their university used copious amounts of caffeine to fuel last-minute homework assignments or late-night cram sessions, but Nelly knew better. Raku had definitely stayed up all night, raiding with his guild in his latest MMORPG addiction, Echidna Online. He conscripted her on a few occasions, giving her precise instructions on what buttons to press while he ran to the bathroom. Oh. Those probably should have been bitter memories, but strangely enough, Nelly didn't hate those evenings. She would lay on his bed, planting turnips and petting cows on her handheld console, and every once in a while he would turn to her and grumble about a lackadaisical teammate or celebrate a particularly close call. She wondered if his raids went well. He had complained about terrible drops for the past 2 months. Did he finally get that item that he wanted? Something hit her face. She reached up and wiped the raindrop trickling down her forehead. But as soon as she did that, another droplet hit her face, then another, and another. Soon a torrent of water was assaulting them. Nelli drew her hood over her head, guarded from the onslaught by her raincoat. Raku wasn't nearly so lucky.
Over there!
He grabbed her hand, ushering her to an old bus stop at the side of the road. When they entered, Raku wheeled the bike inside, leaning it against the back wall.
Lucky. Glad this was here.
He wiped his face with his sleeve and ran a hand through his hair, flicking some of the water out.
You were even luckier, though.
What do you mean?
He pointed at her coat.
I'm surprised you thought to wear a raincoat. The rain wasn't anywhere on the weather forecast this morning.
It was kind of humid, so...
Raku seemed to accept that explanation. He leaned the bike to the side and looked around inside the bus stop.
I wonder if the buses still come to this stop. There's no sign.
He took his phone out of the pocket of his jeans and wiped it on his sweatshirt before thumbing through to the Maps app.
No reception. Can't load anything.
He squinted at the stormy gray sky.
Maybe it'll stop soon. No choice but to wait.
He plopped himself on the bench, crossing his legs and leaning his elbow on his knee. Nelli chewed her thumb, glaring at the raindrops falling all around them. Should she leave? But if she did that, he might be suspicious, and she couldn't abandon her bike here. Her bag wasn't waterproof either. She brushed off the bench and sat down, too. Raku tried to hide a smile. He rubbed the back of his neck and looked all around, the inside of the bus stop, his gaze straying to every nook and cranny before finally landing on Nelli.
So, what have you been up to lately?
Nothing much. Working on my thesis.
Alright, we got lots to talk about here. We'll talk about it.
Been spending most of my time in lab. The results are disappointing so far.
Raku was in a completely different department. He had no way of knowing if she was lying.
Disappointing how?
Nelli wanted to curse. Normally she would have invited questions about academics, since school was half of her personality, but this really wasn't the time for it.
Too much variation in the results to make any conclusions. Maybe it's my technique, or the experimental design.
Always a possibility. He thumbed his chin.
Well, you're brilliant and you work harder than anyone, so I know you'll work it out.
Nelli tried to smile, but her mouth just tightened. She appreciated Raku's optimism, but the issues at hand weren't easy to solve.
Hey.
He looked her up and down, brows furrowing, scrutinizing the mud on her leggings and raincoat. Nelli shrank under his attentive appraisal.
You're hurt.
Huh?
She looked down. As she sat on the bench, the raincoat was pulled up, revealing her knees. Holes had been ripped in both her leggings, exposing the skin underneath. One knee had small red patches where it had been rubbed raw against the ground. The other had been... Oh, God! The other had been completely skinned. Oh, Jesus. Red blood ran down in dark crimson rivulets, staining her leggings a muddy purple. Nelli blinked. Why hadn't she felt anything? Was it the cold? Or the adrenaline? Raku knelt by her knees and rummaged around in his inner jacket pocket, fishing out a white handkerchief. He wiped the blood that was trickling down her leg before diverting his attention to the wound. He dabbed at it, carefully wiping the exposed flesh. Yeah, her ex-boyfriend had, unfortunately, spent all of his skill points on his academic smarts, coding skills, and gaming prowess. He was sorely lacking in most of life's necessary abilities, like first aid. There was always a 50% chance that his toast would emerge completely charred. He kept his papers in haphazardly organized piles on the floor. Somehow he even managed to sew an entire shirt sleeve shut while attempting to reattach a button. The button was, sadly, not attached. But he was always meticulous. No matter how small the task, Raku expended 120% effort. He would fuss for an hour while reducing a cream sauce to the perfect consistency. When he did her laundry, he carefully smoothed out every wrinkle. When she went out of town and asked him to take care of her cat, he shared a spreadsheet with her detailing every aspect of the pet's care. Oh, wow. As she watched him painstakingly try to remove every speck of dirt from her scraped knee, those little memories floated through Nelli's head, refusing to leave no matter how hard she tried to push them away. Mine was foggy and her heart tightened.
Does it hurt? Unfortunately, all I have is this. Shoot, I wish we were at home. This needs to be cleaned with ethanol. Does that hurt? Tell me if it hurts.
I'm fine.
Nelli bit her lip. Her knee didn't hurt, but this side did. Raku kneeling next to her, worrying and tending to her scrapes and bruises. They had broken up. She should have been a stranger to him. Less than a stranger. Raku tied the handkerchief around the scrape, making sure that it wasn't too tight.
How's that? Okay?
It's fine.
She swallowed. The lump in her throat bobbed in place, refusing to disappear.
Somehow the blood got on the outside of your coat, too. Not a lot, though.
He scrubbed a few spots on the bottom of the raincoat. He gave her coat one last wipe with the handkerchief before getting up and returning to his seat.
I'm sorry. I didn't notice you were hurt.
I said it's okay.
They stood in silence for around 10 minutes. But as they sat, Nelli could tell that Raku was growing increasingly tense. His leg bounced as he chewed on his lip. Finally, he turned towards her.
Nelli, can we talk?
Here it was. He wanted to talk. Of course he did. They had dated for almost a year and a half. They'd even discussed their future plans together. Something went wrong. We don't know what that is yet. We've only seen the good side so far. If Raku had sent her a text out of the blue saying, "I'm breaking up with you," then she would have questions. She would have had questions too. She didn't want to talk or explain, which is why she had avoided him for 2 weeks after sending the text. She had eluded him very successfully, till this very moment, that is.
Was it something I did? Did I do something wrong?
That could be a very valid reason. If we're in a position where you have a legitimate gripe with the relationship, a legitimate issue that's taking you out of this relationship, and you get the impression that he's the kind of person who can handle that sort of discussion maturely, then it is fair to ask. If there's evidence that he's not, that he would not handle this sort of discussion maturely, then we don't.
You're suffocating. You never give me any space or time for myself.
What?
Always asking to eat meals together, or picking me up after class and work, or waiting in the library when I'm in lab.
This is the first time I've heard this. I didn't know you felt that way. I just wanted to spend time with you, Nelli. We're both so busy with our theses and tutoring, and you've got your job at the library. I wanted to take every opportunity to see you. I can change that. I'll wait until you want to spend time together. We were talking about moving in together a month ago. I don't understand how your feelings changed so quickly.
They just did.
She looked down and twisted her fingers together. She hesitated to say anything further. It felt like she was standing on the edge of a precipice, and a single word would send her tumbling into an abyss. This just feels like... This is the option that gets a conversation going, but this feels like the edge of something much worse. Like that's just the tip of an iceberg here.
Is it because of what I did to Ji-hoon? Because I didn't apologize?
Oh! What did you do? What did you do? You gritted his teeth.
You know why I did it. You heard all those things he was saying about Sana. Insisting that she was addicted to social media. Saying she probably fell because she was trying to take a cute selfie with the sunrise. How could he say that? About his own girlfriend? deserve more than one punch.
Again, surface level, yes. If that's the whole story, dude deserved to get punched out. Is there more to it? Nelli's mouth tightened. This is one side of a story. There's one side of a story. I mean, a story which Nelli does not feel comfortable discussing the other side of. She wanted to protest, to say that wasn't it. In reality, Raku's outburst had been gratifying. At the memorial, she sat in silence, trying to ignore Ji-hoon's prattle, so that she could focus on honoring Sana. The seconds felt like grueling hours. She wanted to sew Ji-hoon's mouth shut. When Raku finally hit him, it felt as if Raku had taken all of her bubbling indignation and anger and shoved it in Ji-hoon's face. It's not that.
It's not that.
Then why? When I asked for your number the first time, I didn't really think you'd give it to me. After all, you're you, and I'm me. I didn't think I had a shot with you. But I had to ask. I would have cursed myself if I didn't even try. And you gave it to me. And then you said yes when I asked you out for lunch, and then you kept saying yes. I was so happy, but I also thought that maybe you just viewed me as your gaming friend. So I asked, is this a date? And then you laughed and said, of course it's a date. At that moment, I felt this pang in my chest.
We're reminiscing.
I realized something. All of the messy, revolting things that had happened up until that point. The vile vulgarity of my own existence. It was because I had already spent all the luck I had in this lifetime to meet you. I had never met anyone like you before. Even though life hasn't been kind to you, you always find room in your heart to be kind to others. People, plants, animals. Even something as little and creepy and disgusting as an insect. I still remember when you found a spider in your apartment. Not a small one either. It was perched on the wall above your bed, barely holding on with 3 broken legs. You reached out and caught it in your hands. It would have been so easy to squish it right then and there. But you didn't. You opened the window and let it go. At that moment, I knew you were special. Really special.
I don't remember that at all. Did I do that?
Raku laughed.
You did. I guess you wouldn't remember. It was such a small thing. But I remembered.
Raku turned towards Nelli and slowly extended his arms around her. She stiffened slightly, but she didn't push him away.
You know how you go through life, and you meet all these different people, but none of them really
Too close. Too close.
We'll meet, and you'll talk about what movie just came out, or what assignment is due next in class, or what food they're serving in the cafeteria. But you can never tell them about the real you. It's like you rush together for a second, and then the next, you're each going your separate ways. And when you stop taking classes together, or you move away, you never see those people again. And your life isn't any different in the end, because they didn't really know you. But you're different, Nelli. You know me. In some ways, you know me better than my closest friends, and even my family. You know things about me that I can never tell anyone else. And if I couldn't see you anymore, then my life would be different. There would be a big, gaping hole where you used to be.
It's... The impartial outside observer might be listening to this and thinking, he sounds really sweet. He's saying all the right things, and yet there's still something we gotta take into consideration, that there's a reason why. Gosh. There's a reason why Nelli is so pensive in this situation. There's a reason why Nelli broke things off and has been actively avoiding this guy. It's not something that she wants to talk about.
Losing you terrifies
So
me.
what?
I'm afraid that no one else would be able to know me the way you do. That I won't be able to open up to anyone else the way I opened up to you. And I don't want anyone else to know me the way you do, because they wouldn't be you.
I didn't know you felt that way about me.
When Nelli didn't resist, Raku pulled her tighter, whispering in her ear.
I don't want to break up. I love you, Nelli. I never want to love anyone but you. You don't feel the same? Not at all?
Nelli stayed silent, but she unconsciously leaned into Raku's hold. When her friends talked about their childhoods, Nelli couldn't relate. They reminisced, they brought up their beloved childhood cartoons, their favorite vacations, and their cherished family pets. Nelli didn't have memories of any of those things. Oh. Instead, all she remembered was the constant yelling, the embarrassment when she couldn't afford lunch, fear as she huddled under the covers, never at home, even in her own house, the relief when her father went out one day and never returned. Oh. One time she talked to Sana, and Sana tried her best, listened and nodded and said, I understand completely. That was a lie. There's simply some things that Nelli's best friend couldn't understand. All Sana could offer was some comforting words. It's rough. It's horrible. Can't believe that happened. As if Nelli's favorite television show had been cancelled, or she cracked her phone screen, or she had gotten a D on her latest exam. It wasn't Sana's fault, but it didn't make Nelli feel any better. Eventually, Nelli stopped talking about herself altogether. That changed when she met Raku. It wasn't some dramatic encounter. They were standing in line at the library, both waiting to check out a couple books. Raku noticed the keychain hanging from her backpack, a small white and blue pixel art spaceship from Space Blasters. They reached the front of the line, and Nelli handed the librarian her books. They were still excitedly chatting about their favorite retro games. She promised to lend Raku one of her cartridges, and they exchanged contacts. Nelli didn't talk about herself at first. They talked, of course, but it was usually about their shared hobbies. They liked different genres and played in different ways. Raku fancied punishing difficulty and expansive exploration, and Nelli preferred methodically leveling her characters with optimized strategies. Still, they had plenty in common. When the conversation veered too personal, Nelli drove it back into the safety of benign small talk. Yet Raku had a way of methodically tearing down her carefully constructed barriers. As they lounged on his bed, full and drowsy from eating too much cheap pizza, the words started slipping out of her mouth one by one. For Nelli, Raku was different. When he had listened to her darkest thoughts, he didn't look at her with pity, skepticism, or disgust, or apathy. He looked at her with understanding, as if he had been with her every step of the way. Raku was special. It's exactly why they had to break up. She couldn't involve him in her life or her she had to end it. Nelli wormed her hands between their bodies and pushed Raku away, forcefully. Oh no. Okay. I was worried this was going in a much worse direction. It might still go in a bad direction, but
I don't want to date you anymore. End of story. It's not a discussion.
So that's it? It's over? Just like that?
Nelli's voice was resolute.
It's over.
It's over. It's over. It's over.
Every time he repeated himself, his face darkened.
Even though I've loved you for years. Even though I loved you this much.
He lowered his head, dragging a hand through his hair as he turned away from her. He turned to the other side of the bus stop, leaning one hand heavily against the wall as raindrops dampened his worn-out orange sneakers. Nelli thought about responding, considered spouting a few words of comfort, reassuring her ex-boyfriend with some cliché lines. It's not you, it's me. I'm not good enough for you. She was his first serious girlfriend. He had told her as much. He had never experienced heartbreak. He was a child crying over his first scraped knee, acting like his leg had been amputated without anesthesia. She considered and decided to stay silent. It was better if she believed she was cruel and callous. After a few weeks of sad gaming sessions and angry rants to his friends, he would probably forget about her altogether. Besides, she couldn't worry about him right now. She had bigger problems at hand. He straightened. When he stood in front of her again, there was something different about his expression, something colder, more resolute, as if he had made some sort of decision during his morose period of introspection.
I heard about you and Ji-hoon. I've seen
What?
you two around.
What? Prickles ran up Nelli's spine.
What about it? Are you going to start policing who I spend time with? I don't see how that's any business of yours.
We have arrived at the Dark Turf.
People have been talking, saying that you took advantage of your best friend's death to cozy up to her rich boyfriend.
Oh, this is bad.
They said that you two spent a lot of time together, that you went to his house on Friday. Is that why you broke up with me? Because you wanted to get together with Ji-hoon? Do you love him?
Oh, boy. Her? In love with Ji-hoon? The very thought made Nelli want to vomit. She would rather date an insect. Is this going... I have a bad feeling about this. I don't...
I don't.
Then, is it someone else?
She didn't want to lie, but if she stayed quiet, then maybe Raku would come to his own conclusions and drop the matter.
What am I supposed to do? What can I say? I don't want to lose you.
Her voice was soft and quiet, almost pitiful.
For me, a world with only you is enough, Nelli. I only need you. No matter who you are, or what you've done. You don't need me. You don't even want me.
Oh boy. This is not going well. Nelli opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She simply stared at Raku's face, eyes widening. When she finally responded, she didn't say the words that she had intended to say. Oh boy.
What are you?
What? What? Excuse me? Raku reached up and touched his face, tracing his fingers over his eyebrow ridge, along with his mouth and down his chin.
Oh no, I got a little worked up. Wait.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Nelli leaned back on her elbows and booted Raku square in the chest. He coughed as the air was knocked from his lungs, landing hard in a puddle on the concrete. Is he the spy? That story she told about the spider, is that him? Is he a fucking spider? Is he a fucking spider? What? Excuse me? She broke off into a run down the road. She left her bike at the bus stop, but she didn't care. The only thought in her head was run, run, run. Oh, the raindrops pelted her face painfully, but she didn't stop to put her hood up. Every time her energy started to wane and her pace slowed, the image of Raku's face flashed under her eyelids, and she ran faster. After she had sprinted for 20 minutes, she dared to glance behind her. He wasn't following. But she didn't stop running, not for a second. By the time she had made it back to town, it had stopped raining, and the sun was high in the sky, ready to make the trip down. As she approached her apartment building, the town was dyed in sunset hues, and the sky was beginning to dim. She sprinted to the entrance, looking behind her every so often. When she was inside, she darted up the stairs, which whined at every frantic step. Nelli went up to her apartment and fumbled her keys out of her pocket. She slammed the door shut behind her. Oh, the first thing she did when she entered her darkened room was scoop up her cat, who sashayed up to her, meowing for attention and food. Nelli forcefully turned the lock on her door, as if the extra effort would somehow make the bolt more secure. As she checked the lock, she had a sudden, chilling realization. Raku had a key to her apartment. Oh boy! Nelli dropped her cat and dragged her bookshelf in front of the door. She hoped that would be enough to stop him. She didn't know. Oh boy! She crouched behind her bed, holding a broom with her kitchen knife duct taped to the end. She didn't know that much about weapons, and this improvised spear was the best she could come up with from the items in her house. Meow? As she waited, Nelli examined the shoddy tool. She really used it against Raku. That Raku that brought her rice balls when she was too tired and stressed to cook. That Raku that always seemed to know when she wanted to hug. The Raku that... Nelli gripped the shaft of the broom. She could. She could do anything to defend herself. She would do anything to defend herself. After all, she had done it before. A couple of hours passed. Every time Nelli had heard footsteps creaking in the hallway, her heart jumped, and she grabbed her makeshift weapon. But each time the footsteps faded away without approaching. Eventually she relaxed enough to venture to the kitchen, where she opened a tin of cat food for her increasingly whiny companion. Put the contents of the yellow bag in the freezer before eating a quarter of a leftover sandwich, keeping an close eye on the door. Monday passed. Tuesday passed, too. The only visitor that she received was a spider that appeared on her closet door. It stayed for a while, appraising her with its curiously icy eyes. Every few hours it would change its position slightly, moving to the bedpost, the ceiling, and finally the curtain hanging over the window. Her phone buzzed. Calendar reminders about her classes. Messages about her missed tutoring sessions. Oh no. Emails from her lab partners and her thesis advisor. Eventually she turned her phone off altogether. Wednesday morning, a sharp rap came for the door. Oh no. Nelli huddled next to her bed, holding her cat close. She worried that the bookshelf wouldn't hold. What did she see? A human voice emanated from behind the bookshelf, from the door. It wasn't Raku. Nelli Owens, this is the police. Wellness check. I'll definitely rescue you. Wait for me. Oh boy. Oh boy. Ending C and D are unlocked. Oh. Oh, autosave. Let's be cruel.
You never want to love anyone but me. What sappy dramas have you been watching? You're acting like a child. Wake up. This isn't some fantasy. People break up. It happens all the time.
So that's it? It's over? Just like that?
Nelli's voice was resolute.
It's over.
It's over. It's over. It's over.
Every time he repeated himself, his face darkened.
Even though I've loved you for years. Even though I loved you this much.
He lowered his head, dragging a hand through his hair. Can we skip the... Say nothing. She didn't want to lie, but if she stayed quiet, then maybe Raku would come to his own okay. If this changes anything. Where did we leave off here? We saw something we didn't really like from Raku. She exhaled and turned her gaze to the front. Raku was waiting in front of her! He stood off to the side of the road, reclining against a tree trunk with his arms crossed, staring at her with the specter of a smirk teasing his lips. Nelli ground to a halt. Her eyes darted to the forests on either side and then back the way she had come.
Nelli, wait. Let's talk.
Nelli took her bag off and pelted it at Raku, hammered him in the chest, knocking him slightly off balance. As he held it, he looked at it curiously, giving her the opportunity to dash into the woods to the right. Oh no. We're gonna end up the same as Sana, aren't we? It's a lot more difficult to traverse the dense forest with its maze of trees and bushes. But Nelli doubted that her speed mattered. He had managed to get in front of her, after all. How had he managed that? He was more athletic than his appearance would suggest, but... She squeezed her eyes shut to dispel the unnecessary thought and reached forward to part the foliage so that she could pass. She winced as the brambles caught on her exposed skin. She couldn't keep running like this. She checked that Raku was nowhere to be seen before maneuvering to a large fallen tree trunk. Covered in a blanket of moss and shelf mushrooms, she lay down next to it, flattening her stomach against the damp ground and making sure that nearby ferns obscured her form. Pulled her hood over her head, and she waited. Could he hear her? Could he smell her? Every once in a while she heard a soft rustle, but it was so quiet and transient that she figured it had to be the wind. She checked her phone. 2 hours had passed. She decided to wait a little longer. This time her leggings were completely drenched and she was shivering uncontrollably. An hour since she had last heard a sound. Surely he was gone by now. Peeked over the top of the tree trunk. There was no one in sight. She could only see an endless green vegetation peppered along the sea of trees, gleaming from the rays of sunlight peering through the treetops. She got up, letting down her hood and shaking the raindrops from her jacket. It would take her hours to get back to town. It was a bad idea to go back to her apartment right away. She needed something to defend herself. Pepper spray. Bear spray? Vinegar? She heard that peppermint was effective. But would it even work against him? This makes me curious. Just testing here. This adds credence to my theory that somehow Raku is a spider in human form. Her flashlight was in the bag she had used as an improvised projectile. Fished her phone from her pocket. She would need light to make it back in the dark and couldn't risk draining the battery before night fell. As Nelli turned off her phone, she didn't pay attention to where she was putting her hands. Spider webs. Spider webs. Yep. She looked at her right hand. She had leaned it against a nearby tree trunk to steady herself as she navigated a tangle of roots underfoot. However, when she tried to lift her hand off of it, it didn't detach. Her fingers were adhered to the bark by some kind of sticky substance. She put her phone in her pocket and tried to pry her right hand free with her left. Oh no, when it didn't loosen, she placed a foot against the tree trunk and attempted to use it as leverage to force herself free. Oh dear! Her foot slipped on the damp, slimy bark and her legs fell out from under her. She landed hard on her elbows, barely avoiding slamming her chin against the ground.
What?
I don't like this! I don't like this! Her feet were bound together by some sticky, gold-tinged transparent threads. This is bad. She flipped over on her back and reached over, tugging at the bonds, but to no avail. They clung to her boots and fingers like glue, refusing to detach. As she looked around, she saw that those staple fibers were everywhere, blanketed over the ground, strung between the treetops and strewn over the bushes. Someone has been going off. The threads are thin and delicate, only visible when the sunlight glinted off the droplets that clung to them.
There you are. I was waiting long enough for you to come out.
Yep, there he is. As Raku approached, the gossamer filaments shook slightly. sending a drizzle of raindrops falling onto the forest floor. He appraised her with an inscrutable expression. He sighed.
You're soaked. You'll catch a cold. Let's go home.
I'm not going anywhere with you.
He thumbed one of the golden threads, strumming it like the string of a guitar.
At first I thought that Ji-hoon was the problem. All I had to do was get rid of him, and then you'd come back to me.
Oh dear.
But then I realized that I was wrong. He wasn't the problem. There are always going to be Ji-hoons in the world. Other distractions. How can I stop you from looking at them? How can I make you only look at me?
Yep. Remember earlier in this video when I said that we were right on the edge of a much darker iceberg? We have gone over the edge, and we are deep in it now.
The answer was surprisingly simple. I need to make a world where there aren't any distractions.
He leaned close, his voice eerily serene.
A world for just the two of us.
I make a world where you only have me, then surely you'll want me, right? Oh boy. It all falls apart. Do you know the endings? There are 4 of them. We got 2 of them. I think this is ending B. I think this is ending B. So now endings C and D are unlocked. It is to be nicer to Raku. Our quest to be a little nicer. Alright.
All right.
Tried to rack her brain for an excuse, but she had no good reason to say no. Raku extended a hand.
Want me to carry the bag for you?
And here we go. It's heavy.
It's heavy. I don't want to bother you with it.
That's a bit of a nicer answer. We're talking. And we're walking. We're raining. Talking about our thesis. Let's go at him.
What about you?
I'd like to say I've been working on my thesis too, but I've been occupied with a personal project.
Personal, huh?
Coding related?
Raku was notoriously capricious with his interests. During the year that they had been together, Nelli had seen him shovel out over a dozen small projects. Mobile apps, video games, online tools, and the like. Nice! Any small shower thought would be spun into reality within a weekend.
Something a little different this time.
Really? A cryptic answer, but Nelli resisted the urge to probe. A world with just the 2 of us, if ending A is anything to go by.
Well, try not to get
Ending
too
B,
distracted.
perhaps.
But I'm sure you'll finish your thesis either way.
No matter how much he procrastinated, Raku always managed to submit his assignments on time with stellar results. It irked Nelli to no end. Raku smiled.
I wish everyone believed in me the way you do, Nelli. Hey. You're hurt.
Oh. Move on here. Don't need to explain myself. I kind of want to... I think these are 2 separate... things here. You have a save here.
I don't owe you an explanation. I want to break up. You should respect that.
You're not even willing to say one sentence? You were talking about moving in together a month ago. I don't understand how your feelings change so quickly.
Oops, I don't want to do that. I want to load. There we go. Graduating
We're
soon.
graduating soon. I'll go to veterinary school. You'll probably get a job on the other side of the country. Long-distance relationships rarely work. How many years are we going to text and video chat? It's unrealistic.
You don't know that it won't work. I can find something where I can work remotely. If not, then we can still at least try. If you're willing, then I'm willing.
At the rate he's putting stuff out, freelance is a realistic possibility for him.
Any relationship takes effort. A long-distance one just takes a little more effort, that's all.
Also a true statement.
We were talking about moving in together a month ago. I don't understand how your feelings change so quickly.
There's still a very justifiable dark void that we're not talking about. Justifies his decision for Nelli without, It's not that.
It's not that.
Then why? When I asked for your number the first time,
These are pleasant
I didn't really
memories.
think you'd give it to me.
We honestly have pleasant memories together. Like there's still something isn't quite clicking. Something happened that pushed her over that edge. Whether it's related to Raku's obvious secret or something else toward of their relationship. Something happened that, or maybe it really is. Maybe it really is just her own feelings getting in the way here. Maybe it's just her own insecurity getting in the way here. In which case, both of these two need to talk to someone professional. Obviously, she came from a very difficult upbringing that made it hard for her to connect with people on a deeper level, and she did it with him. And now, if her justification is anything to go by, it's because of that she wanted to break it off. So much else she could say, but because of that, she wanted to end things. We're gonna be kind.
I understand how you feel, but you'll find someone else. There are plenty of people way better for you than me. You just haven't met them yet. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm not ready for this kind of relationship right now.
Okay, we've achieved honesty. We've achieved. She's put her thoughts into words.
So that's it? It's over? Just like that?
What happens next is on your shoulders, my boy. On your however many shoulders spiders have. Nelli bit her lip. Part of her heart wanted to apologize, but she swallowed the urge.
It's over. It's over. It's over.
Jim repeated himself, his face darkened.
Even though I've loved you for years. Even though I loved you this much.
I do genuinely wonder if the story he told about the spider that she let loose is some kind of legitimate origin story. In a weird way. Right. I think we can move forward. Oh, this is new. Nelli twisted her hands together. Her ex-boyfriend wasn't the most emotive person. When he was amused, he expressed it through soft chuckles, not laughter. On more than one occasion, she only noticed that he was angry because he came home and pulled out a first-person shooter to play. He only cried in front of her on one occasion. Nelli was lying on his chest, playing with his earrings, when Raku told her about his family. About the abuse and inhuman expectations. Oh god. You could tell that he was deliberately holding back the darker details, but his expression told her enough. She nuzzled against his neck, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "You don't have to be who they want you to be. I'll love you no matter who you are." Oh no. When he heard that, the tears started to flow. They gushed down his cheeks, effusive and unrestrained, and he pulled her in and close and repeated, "Thank you," over and over. Seeing her ex-boyfriend now strongly reminded Nelli of that evening. Raku's reaction squeezed her heart painfully, but she couldn't worry about him right now. She had bigger problems at hand. Straightened. Same question?
We're in the same department, in a lot of the same classes. It would be stranger if we didn't spend any time together. I've been helping him with his thesis, too.
We didn't even get a choice this time.
People have been talking, saying that you took advantage of your best friend's death to cozy up to her rich boyfriend. They said that you two spent a lot of time together, that you went to his house on Friday.
He still disgusts me, but... Listen, boy. He still disgusts me, but we are... I am a tutor, and he's probably a tutee. Oh no.
First, I was devastated. I thought, of course she chose him over me. He's tall, handsome, rich, athletic.
This is different.
But then, I thought about it some more. After all, Ji-hoon isn't perfect. We both listen to Sana. We both know how many of his faults that she forgave. His ego, his infidelity.
Oh no.
His temper.
Oh.
You're smart. Why would you choose him? And there was something else. I thought, the Nelli that I love isn't cruel. She's kind. She wouldn't break up with someone over text just so she could chase another guy. I wondered, why would she do that then? Why would she break up with me so cruelly? Cut me off without another word? Maybe it was because she was planning something. Something where she didn't want anyone else to get involved.
What was she cooking?
Something bad.
Revenge?
Sana's death was always a little strange, wasn't it?
Okay, this is cooking in a direction.
She was the most outdoorsy out of all of us. She went hiking and camping all the time. She visited these woods constantly. She was always prepared. She never went anywhere without her hiking boots. So why was she found wearing a pair of wedge heels?
If this is legitimately what... Oh.
And she fell off a cliff trying to take a selfie? That Sana? The Sana that only uploaded pictures of food and blurry photos of your cat?
Raku's eyes glimmered.
Do you remember when Sana fractured her ankle? She couldn't walk properly for weeks. She said that she accidentally fell down the stairs when she and Ji-hoon were fighting.
Oh, fuck.
I wondered if that happened often. Sana accidentally tumbling down the stairs during fights with her boyfriend. Maybe on the night of her disappearance, she accidentally fell again. But this time, it wasn't down the stairs. It was over the railing.
So Ji-hoon needs to die.
You've seen the stairs in the Kang family mansion. If you dropped head first over the railing onto that pristine marble floor, you'd never wake up again.
The only good Kong is Jae-hee Kong. And she very obviously is not associated with her family anymore.
Ji-hoon's standing over the body. He's the Kang family prince. He can't be involved in something like this. His life would be ruined. So he takes her body to a cliff near the house and drops her off it. She didn't die at his mansion. She died while hiking by herself. Too easy. After that, all he had to do was ask a few of his friends to cover for him. They're too eager to lie to suck up to the Kang heir.
He starts gushing about,
There was one snag in his plans. Sana's best friend, who couldn't stop crying for over a month after she was found, who was too familiar with the kind of guy Ji-hoon really was, who knew where Sana was the night she disappeared, because they were roommates who texted each other about everything. The best friend was suspicious. She wanted to know the truth, so she broke up with her poor boyfriend and got close to Ji-hoon instead. It wouldn't have been difficult to get an invite to his house. Maybe Ji-hoon even offered. Why don't you come pick up Sana's belongings? She left some things at my place. And then something unexpected happened. A plot twist, if you will.
Raku leaned a little closer, sweeping his eyes over Nelli.
You know, something has been bothering me for a while now.
This has been cooking in many directions, and I don't know how to feel about this.
Something smells. At first, I thought it was your
What's in
knee,
the bag?
but that's not quite right, is it?
What's in the bag?
The stench is too strong.
Oh, fuck.
for that.
I breathed in heavily and exhaled with a contented sigh.
What is that odor? A little sweet,
Mm-hmm.
slightly metallic. It smells delicious.
Oh no! Oh no! His glass-like eyes glittered under his stringy, blue-tinged bangs, boring holes in his shorts bag lying in Nelli's lap.
What's in the bag, Nelli?
That explains why she was in such a rush to get back. Oh god, he knows. Stab him! Oh! 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 This has gone in. Holy shit. Run! And I didn't think. She lunged forward, bashing Raku in the stomach with her shoulder. I mean, he knows. He's very clearly felt in a similar manner. We could talk this out, but she is very much wanting to get away from this. He didn't fall, he only stumbled, but the stuff still gave Nelli the chance to break away from him. She sprinted away from the bus stop. She turned away from the road, escaping into the forest. Nelli tore her way through the foliage, weaving around the trees. The yellow bag bounced against her side with every step, weighing her down like a ball and chain. Peered over her shoulder. She couldn't see him. Had she lost him? Oh no! Her legs fell out from under her, sending her crashing to the ground. Fall knocked the breath out of her, but luckily her tumble was cushioned by a thick layer of vegetation. Nelli looked back. She thought that her foot had caught a protruding tree root, but that wasn't the case. Instead, her boot was entangled in a mess of sticky, gold-tinged threads. She started to pull at them. She noticed something out of the corner of her eye. It had rolled out. It stared at her from a few feet away. Why did it roll out? The bag was closed. She made sure it was closed. Why?
Nelli.
Oh no. Oh no. Raku walked around Nelli. He put his sneaker on Ji-hoon's decapitated head and started rolling it around, almost playfully.
You've been busy, haven't you? You must have had quite the late night.
Yes? Leaned over and picked up the handle of the hacksaw, which had also jettisoned out of the bag during Nelli's fall. Oh my god. He dangled it between his fingers before giving it a few experimental swings.
It would have taken a long time using this old thing. You're probably exhausted.
Tossed the hacksaw back into the bag and retrieved the knife. Ran his index finger along the edge, scrutinizing the reddish residue that rubbed off onto his fingertip.
I wonder, was this your plan all along? Or was it an accident?
It was on purpose.
He deserved it. Ji-hoon killed Sana. He murdered her and dumped her in the woods like a piece of garbage. He made up lies about her and bribed his friends to cover up for him. What gives him the right? Because he's rich? Because his family is powerful? That means he can get away with whatever he wants? He made Sana's life hell up until the moment he stole it from her. Even if I get caught, I don't regret anything. I treated him like the trash he was. Like how he treated Sana.
I have to admit, this is a side of you that I haven't seen before.
He snickered.
I kind of like it.
The pale young man sighed before stooping close to Nelli.
You know what you need to do now, right, Nelli?
And what's that? What do I need to do?
Raku flipped the knife around, extending the handle to Nelli. When she didn't take it, he forced it between her fingers and folded his hands around hers.
What you've been doing all along, of course. You need to get rid of the evidence.
Oh. Oh, what? What? When Nelli didn't move, Raku squeezed her hands, forcing her to inch the knife closer to his throat. Nelli struggled, but Raku's grip was too strong. What is he cooking?
What are you doing? Stop!
Come on, you can do it. You're a cold-blooded killer, aren't you? One more shouldn't be a big deal.
Nelli tried to kick him away, but Raku pressed his legs onto her feet, preventing her, kneeing him in the stomach.
I'll do anything for you, Nelli.
What?
Everything I have is yours, including my life.
This is not healthy. This is not good. What is this? What is happening? His tip of the knife dug into the collar of his turtleneck, piercing the fabric.
Stop it!
Nelli jerked her arms backwards and to the side, throwing Raku off balance. At least his hands embraced them on either side of Nelli to avoid toppling onto her. The knife dropped into the grass next to them. For a few moments, Raku hovered above Nelli, breathing heavily. She hesitated before daring to look at his face. He was grinning from ear to ear. He leaned over and picked up the knife before standing back up. He turned around and dropped the knife back into the bag. Is this some kind of test?
I knew it. You tried your best, but
Oh.
you're not a bad person, Nelli. You're not a criminal. You're not made to do things like this. Even if you cut him up and throw him all over the place, they'll find the pieces. They know when he disappeared. They know you're the one who was getting close to him. They know you're the one who saw him last.
Raku put a hand on her head, ruffling her hair affectionately.
It's okay, Nelli. Don't worry. I can help you do bad things. After all, I'm a bad person. I was made to do things like this.
Oh dear.
Or rather, person might be the wrong way to put it.
Oh boy. As Nelli stared up at Raku's ominous smile, her pupils contracted. She tried to scoot backwards, but the webs caught her legs, preventing her from retreating. Raku had lied. You know me? You know me better than anyone else? Nelli didn't know him. Not in the slightest. Before her eyes, her ex-boyfriend's body began to morph. A thick black carpus formed over his skin, and 4 massive legs sprouted from his back, landing on the ground and lifting his body into the air. His face twisted and warped as a pair of fangs germinated from his mouth and another set of eyes formed. In a minute, she could no longer describe what she was looking at. It almost looked like some grotesque amalgamation of a human and a spider. Hey there, pretty boy. Oh, baby. The creature picked up Ji-hoon's head, turning it around in his hands a few times before vomiting over it. As the digestive fluid softened the meal for consumption, the arachnid began chewing it, gnawing at the flesh and cartilage before moving on to the bone. The creature's mandibles made short work of the red sinew and the ivory shards. It took a minute for Ji-hoon's half-melted face to disappear between the spider's massive jaws, vanishing down his gullet. I mean, this is just your average programmer. Nothing strange to see here. This is just your average freelance programmer. Can confirm that this is perfectly normal. Don't worry about it.
Done.
Nelli's shoulders jumped. She hadn't expected a human voice to emerge from that distinctly non-human face. It sounded like Raku, though his voice was low and guttural.
Now, all you have to do is show me where you tossed the other parts. As for the saw and the knife, well, I don't want to eat those, but I'm sure we can find a good place to get rid of them.
Creature picked some of the strands of hair from around his fangs, and swallowed those too.
In truth, I don't like doing things like this. I want to be different. I don't want to be who they want me to be. But I can't reject it either. Because I need to get rid of any obstacles standing in the way of your happiness. It doesn't matter who or what. I'll destroy them. I don't want you to experience the vulgar things in life, Nelli. I don't want you to feel any more pain, or sorrow, or heartache. I'll do anything to make that happen.
Creature repositioned itself closer to Nelli, stabbing its massive black legs into the ground, too close to her for comfort. It swung its head in front of her face. 4 eyes blinked at her in unison. Ribbons of skin and muscle hung from the monster's fangs. The spider's mouth opened and Nelli froze. She imagined those jaws clamping down on her head, tearing her skull from her body in one sickening crunch. This explains why he was never very emotive, because I imagine when he loses control of his emotions, he goes spider mode.
Oh, oops. Kissing me like this wouldn't be very comfortable, would it?
Nelli blinked. And the next moment, Raku had transformed back into a human. He chewed a couple of times and wiped the blood off his chin with his sleeve. Oh! His eyes glittered as he brought his face closer. However, when he was a couple inches away, he paused.
Can I kiss you?
Are you gonna give me a choice? Oh. Oh, baby. This is... Wow. Alright, Sure, why not? Nelli swallowed. Her teeth were trembling too much to respond, but she slowly shook her head from one side to the other.
I see.
His voice was disappointed, but his eyes were bright, and the ghost of a smile graced his lips.
That's all right. I can wait. I have faith, after all. Because now, you need me.
I'm glad that you agreed to get back together. We're going to be very happy. Spider end. Spider end. Oh boy. Oh my god. Wow. Wow. Alright. Nelli swallowed and gritted her teeth. She slowly nodded her head up and down. Her ex-boyfriend beamed. As he leaned in, she squeezed her eyes shut. Oh boy. Well, oh boy. He pressed his lips against hers, her mouth tightened. Undeterred, he probed his tongue between her lips insistently. She parted them. He drew her in closer, eager to explore every cranny of her mouth with his tongue. He just ate a man's head. A coppery scent wafted through Nelli's nostrils. Raku tasted like metal and acid. A comfortable, queasy feeling burrowed into her stomach, infecting her intestines. When Raku finally released her, Nelli reached up and wiped her mouth off. Her ex-boyfriend didn't seem bothered, though. His smile was bigger than ever, lighting up his anemic face with like a glowing sunrise.
Now you're willing to discuss the breakup again, aren't you? Because now, you need me.
Stab him! He knows. Knows everything. Need to stop him before he tells anyone. Mine was blank. She didn't think. She just unzipped her bag and pulled her hand inside. Raku was still staring at her face, eyes completely unblinking. Nelli flicked her head to the side. Raku followed her gaze, momentarily distracted. So realistically, to get on this path to begin with, we handled the breakup with a bit of grace and tact. And I feel like tact is not the best word to use, but civility? Probably a better word to use. As a result, he doesn't fall too deeply into a jealous, insecure hole, so that when he brings up Ji-hoon, he starts cooking and figures out what we've been up to, what the bag we're hiding is, why we didn't want him carrying the bag, what we were doing out here on our own like this. God, it all... Wow. Oh my god. Nelli flicked her head to the side. Raku followed her gaze, momentarily distracted. Took the opportunity to whip the knife from the bag. She tackled him from below, shoving her shoulder into his chest as she buried the weapon in his gut. A choked gurgle emerged from Raku's throat. Tried to grab the knife, but Nelli was faster. Extracted the blade and struck him with her elbow, pinning him against the back of the bus stop. Oh god. Stab him! The weapon easily sank into his abdomen. His diaphragm fluttered against her hand as she had struggled to fight the blade. Stab him! Oh boy, we're not coming back from this. She thrust the knife into his side. It hit something. A rib? As she twisted the blade, angling it downward until it slid into his flesh completely. Stab him! She plunged the knife in one more time, near his heart. She pulled the weapon out and took a few steps back. Raku grunted, clutching his blood-stained abdomen with one hand as he pushed off the back of the bus stop with the other. He only made it a few steps before he collapsed, lying face up in the concrete. His chest quivered in agony, his breath stuttered through his lips. Nelli clenched the knife's hilt in her fingers. She had to get rid of him. It was already too late. She had to finish him and make sure he would never be found. As she stared at his prone body, her vision became blurrier and blurrier. Raku tried to sit up, but he only managed to lift his head. He looked at his torso with curiosity, probing his wounds with his fingers and examining the blood with interest. He rotated his head, inspecting the puddle forming underneath him on the dark, cracked cement. His face was contorted in pain, but he looked almost impressed by the quantity of blood that was coming out of him. He looked up at her, teeth clenched and eyes filled with confusion.
Why? I wasn't going to tell anyone. I love you. I just wanted to help.
The acidic taste of bile tugged at the back of Nelli's throat. She turned around. She squeezed her eyes shut and swallowed hard until the urge to vomit receded. She couldn't. Raku gazed at her back. His words were choked and hoarse, accompanied by wet coughs.
It's okay, Nelli. I'll forgive you.
The dam broke. Couldn't stop the tears from flowing. She couldn't look at him anymore. She grabbed the knife, her bike, and her bag and broke into a run down the road. Raindrops pelted her face painfully, but she didn't stop to put her hood up. Every time her energy started to wane and her pace slowed, the image of Raku's mutilated form flashed under her eyelids, and she ran faster. By the time she made it back to town, it stopped raining and the sun was high in the sky, ready to make the trip down. She walked for 20 minutes before she thought to look at herself. Luckily, the rain had washed all the blood away. She was just a girl wearing a blue raincoat, carrying a yellow sports bag, and wheeling a broken bike. That's why she was wearing the raincoat, too, because blood. Because so much blood. As she approached her apartment building, the town was dyed in sunset hues. The sky was beginning to dim. She left her bike in the back and entered the building. Her life was probably over, but she deserved it. She wouldn't waste time trying to resist. All she wanted to do was go home, lie on the floor, and not have to think anymore. She fumbled the keys out of her pocket. The keychain slipped through her fingers. Her hands were trembling, making the mundane task a little difficult, but eventually she managed to insert her key into the door. She turned it. The lock opened with a familiar click. However, before she could open the door, a hand reached around her, landing on the handle. A pale hand with long fingers, painted in streaks of brown and red. The hand tightened, fingers whitening. The handle squeaked as it turned.
I wasn't done talking, Nelli.
You're doing well for... The door opened and Nelli was shoved into her darkened apartment.
Let's continue the conversation, shall we?
How could you do this to me? It's adorable, but do I need to teach you a lesson? Oh, this is cooking so much. Oh, okay. Let's go through this. Thank you for taking the time to try out this game. Chattercap. Oh, I didn't realize you could scroll through the credits before. A solo dev that does most of the things, including character background art, animations, UI logo design, audio engineering, coding, and script writing. That is just so cool. It's all so cool. Design, animations, audio, coding, script writing. Oh, this is so cool. Raku is voiced by Shaky, full of love. Hey, that was really wild. The audio engineering work here. It's wild. Oh. Amazing voice work. Rocklow by Shaky, full of love, and the Owens by Zoe Sanders, who voiced Bell Automata too. Oh, thought I recognized Nelli's voice there. That's cool. BGM and SFX credit? Yes. Was little in the way of music, but the sound effects and ambience really hit home. Holy crap. Oh. Wow. Well, I am blown away by that one. By this game. Oh my god. I think I actually paused. I did pause, okay. Hopefully I did not miss too much. But yeah, I am blown away by this game. That was a ride. That was a wild ride. That went in. Every time I thought knew what was up, it took my expectations and took them in a very different direction. But it all came together so well. It started out as just dealing, stuck alone with your ex-boyfriend, dealing with a breakup. The itch.io page did color my expectations a little bit. But made me wonder, there was definitely I'm not one to diagnose, but definitely felt like to some degree Nelli that closeness that they managed. Nelli and Raku both opened up to each other in ways that they never have to anyone else before. And everything that we had an option to say here, I feel like could have some validity. There could have been a very smothering aspect to the relationship that they never actually talked about that weighed on her. It could have been very well been a fear that they were getting too close. I almost want to call it codependency. It's as good as they might have been for each other, almost went too far into overly dependent on each other. And man, so they many ways there was a lot of good about their relationship. There's also a lot of concerning aspects to their relationship which would justify Nelli breaking up. with Raku. But then there's also the horror mystery aspect of it coming from both sides of this relationship. The witch got woven in and ramped up really well. You didn't really think much about the little beats that were dropped at the beginning of this. Why was Nelli out in the woods like this? Why was she in such a hurry? Why is, in fact, I want to, scroll through this here. There's something she says. There were only 3 left. That line there means a whole lot more now that we know what she was doing out here, wasn't there? There were only 3 left. We now know what she was doing there, so that line means something way, way different. Just wanted to point that out real quick. They moral of the story. They both had a relationship dynamic here. Yes, I did peek here. I mainly only peeked here to try and tell the difference between which was ending A and which was ending B. So, when we were cruel to Raku, that's when we got webbed up in the woods. When we were firm with him, he broke down, he showed us his face, and we hid out until we were arrested for murder. Yep, ending C. Stabbed him. Ending D. We end up in some sort of relationship. Very concerning scenario that we ended up in the end. That's a lot going on in that relationship dynamic. My God. Oh my God. It's a lot to unpack here, and wow. I'm gonna end this off before I get rambling entirely too much here, and that was a ride. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.